Hi, I'm Melody Daring. I've spent my years as an investigative reporter, and now my husband and I own a small business. But I want to talk to you today about banks, specifically Bank of America. This is a complicated problem, so I'm going to give it to you in small doses. And first, I'm going to start with my story. I bought my home as a single woman in 1996. I didn't overbuy, and I could afford the mortgage. And I paid every mortgage payment. I paid it every month to Countrywide. In 2000, Bank of America and their employees encouraged me to take out an equity line to manage some rather expensive projects I were doing, and I took one out with the idea that I'd have it paid off in 5 years. In 2005, Bank of America sold my equity line to AIG. Now, Countrywide had my primary mortgage and Bank of America had my equity line. Now the equity line was sold to AIG. This was part of the famous bundling of mortgages that we found out about around 2009. AIG almost immediately tried to foreclose, within 6 months, tried to foreclose my home over $300. I told them I could pay the $300 and be happy to pay any penalty and interest, but no, they wanted to foreclose. And with that, they tacked on $8,000 in legal expenses. Now, I didn't have $8,000. So an attorney advised me that my only option really at that time was to file Chapter 13. When I filed Chapter 13, I had very little debt other than the AIG debt. My home mortgage with Countrywide was current. So I filed, and immediately, almost immediately, within a couple of months, Countrywide and then Bank of America, as it progressed to be Bank of America, began to harass me, shall I say, about telling me that I did not make my payments to them correctly, even though I was making direct payments. I would talk to my attorney about this, saying the numbers were off, but I wasn't allowed to see the numbers because in bankruptcy, you're not allowed to have contact with your lenders. My attorney told me that I had no way to fight it, that Bank of America and AIG said I owed this money and I had to pay it. I had to pay every bit of it with no questions. So that's what I did. I paid, and I paid, and I paid some more, and I paid again. Over 5 years and going back to court over 5 times, I paid $9,000 in cash with around $9,000 in additional money wrapped up in my bankruptcy, plus making direct payments. The idea was when I got out of bankruptcy, I would owe nothing, including virtually nothing on the house except what my original loan owed. AIG would be paid off, and I would just owe my current mortgage payment. Before I got out of bankruptcy, I checked my credit score to see, my credit line, to see how that was looking for me. And I was informed that Bank of America had listed on my credit report that I owed $13,000 in back payments on the house. I tried to work this out with Bank of America. Surely it must be a problem because I'd been paying everything the attorney told me to pay in bankruptcy. But Bank of America did nothing, said nothing, but have no contact with me. Did not address any of my concerns or any of my problems. So I ended up having to hire an attorney. During the investigation with the attorney, we discovered that Bank of America was taking my current mortgage payment that I was paying and backdating it 3 years. These errors go all the way back to when it was Countrywide, and apparently there was some major accounting mistakes with Countrywide and when Countrywide became Bank of America between 2006 and 2008. And that's really when the problem started. In fact, the problem started after I went into bankruptcy and could no longer look at the paperwork. We pointed this out to Bank of America and began to file federal lawsuit. Bank of America first said they would settle. They said they would settle many times. In fact, they postponed settlement 5 times. And when it came up to the last settlement, they decided to file a summary judgment in the court asking for the judge to approve them to foreclose on my home. I found out courts really aren't in favor of homeowners. The law tends to go more for banks. The judge didn't consider the fact that the numbers were wrong and that Bank of America had inaccurate reporting and not needed an audit. All the judge found out and really cared about is that, yes, I owed some on my house at that point. I owed because Bank of America had stopped taking my payments in 2012, which is why we filed federal litigation in the first place. So now the home is under foreclosure, although that at the moment hasn't really progressed. Still, I am fighting this battle against Bank of America. We did file objections to the court's decision, but we're not really sure where to go to in litigation from there, so I'm seeking other options. The reason why I'm telling you this is in the past couple of weeks, all this has transpired with the court action, and really over the past 10 years I've been dealing with this. I have found literally thousands of people in the exact same situation where they don't really owe on their house. The bank says they do. And they either filed litigation to keep their house or they've been foreclosed upon. And in fact, there have been at least two class action suits to this effect on people who were wrongfully foreclosed upon. Myself, Bank of America tried to foreclose on me while it was in bankruptcy, which is illegal. But again, the court didn't consider that. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I'm now on a crusade. And I want the world to know about these banks, and we need to band together to do something about them. First of all, you can sign the petition. The link is at the bottom. It's at change.org to help me in my personal situation. Secondly, you can contact both your congressmen and your senators to ask for a congressional hearing delving into this problem. One thing my attorney told me is that laws side with the banks because the banks have lobbyists, and lobbyists pay a lot of money to campaigns. So it's going to take a great public effort to get these elected officials to actually hold congressional hearings, not just on Bank of America, but Wells Fargo and Citibank and SunTrust and any other national bank, because they're all doing it. These lawsuits aren't just Bank of America, they're against every national bank. If you think your state officials can help, they can't. It's a national bank. The states have nothing to do with national banks, and national banks have virtually no oversight because they are national banks and the federal government hasn't done a very good job of monitoring them. President Obama said that he has lots of homeownership programs that'll help you save your home. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, as well as the programs like home modifications, and I have something to say about that as well. And that will be for a later time. The thing we need to do, besides signing the petition and talking to congressmen, is we also need to simply stop doing business with the banks. Everyone needs to stop investing in these banks and their investment programs and move your money elsewhere. You need to close out your checking accounts and saving accounts, moving them to credit unions. Stop investing in the CDs. Stop taking out loans. One thing banks do understand is money. And if they start losing a lot of money because they're not conducting proper practices with their mortgages, then they might actually sit up and take notice. Finally, I would also say if you're going to a presidential candidate's rally and have an opportunity to ask a question, one question would be, what would you do to resolve this problem? The banks clearly have too much power, and they're using it to steal people's property. To the presidential candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, I'm going to ask you to address this problem and address it immediately. It is something that not only needs investigation and accountability, but it also needs correction. And you need to address it now while there's still some of us homeowners left.